Breaking news. Ukraine hits Su-27 and Su-30 jets of Russia at Lipetsk Airbase. And that attack, confirmed for December 2025, is so much more than just a headline. Who is? Subscribe to Defense Reports, your go-to source for timely, in-depth military and defense reports. I'm Alex. Join me with Aria in the latest podcast by Defense Report for a sharp, no-nonsense breakdowns of the latest in global defense news, military technology, and strategic developments. And today we're going to cover how Ukraine's intelligence and resistance movements are turning Russia's deepest air bases into targets, reinforcing the central lesson of the conflict. In the 21st century, air superiority is won or lost on the ground.
That's right. And for this deep dive, we've gone through a stack of analysis comparing these recent, really impactful Ukrainian drone and special ops strikes, Lipetsk, Operation Spiderweb, with broader strategic thinking on how you actually achieve air superiority. We're going to be contrasting Russia's, puzzling failures to seize the skies with Israel's rapid success over Iran earlier in the year.
And the takeaways we've pulled for you today are, I think, going to fundamentally change how you view base security. The big one for me: the Lipetsk strike was executed by a single resistance operative.
Just one person.
One person who neutralized up to $100 million worth of jets while they were inside a hangar.
And that surgical strike comes on the heels of a much larger operation from earlier in the year, codenamed Operation Spiderweb. That one involved 117 drones smuggled deep into Russian territory. It was basically a modern Trojan horse tactic.
We'll also get into how all of this success really highlights Russia's decades-long neglect of offensive air doctrine. That's what enabled Ukraine to keep control of its air defenses, even when the VKS has, technologically superior planes.
And finally, and this is the vital lesson for NATO, for everyone, we'll explore how fixed military assets are now just fatally vulnerable to cheap, clandestine attacks that come from inside their own defensive shields.
All right, let's get into it. The most recent attack first, the tactical triumph at Lipetsk Airbase. This was executed on the night of December 20th to 21st, a joint op between Ukraine's main intelligence directorate, HUR, and a local resistance operative.
And Lipetsk, too, is not some small forgotten airfield. It's about 400 kilometers from the Ukrainian border, so deep inside Russia. It's a major hub. It houses the 4th State Aviation Personnel Training and Field Testing Center.
So this is where they train their best pilots.
Exactly. They're basing high-value aircraft there, Su-34s, Su-35s, and they even do training for the Su-27 fighter there. It's a critical node.
And the damage was incredibly specific. 2 jets set ablaze, a Su-30 multi-role fighter, tail number 82, and a Su-27, tail number 12. The estimated value up to $100 million.
Which is a significant, painful operational loss. The Su-30 is a workhorse, a modern derivative of the Su-27 flanker family. Russia operates about 130 of the SM variant. So taking 2 out, especially at a top-tier training and testing center, that really hurts their long-term readiness.
Okay, but here's the part that is it's mind-blowing. This wasn't a missile strike. The sources say the whole thing relied on human intelligence and covert ops. The planning took just 2 weeks.
The preparation was everything. This single agent was able to get into the facility by, of all things, meticulously studying patrol routes and guard rotation schedules.
So we're not talking about some high-tech hack this is old-school spycraft.
It's pure tradecraft.
Yeah.
They weren't fighting the technology. They were exploiting human routine.
And the sheer audacity of it. They didn't hit the jets out on the open tarmac. They were struck inside a protective aviation hangar.
Inside the hangar. I mean, that's supposed to be the safest place on the entire base. It's shielded. It's monitored. This just demonstrates a completely unconventional attack vector that bypasses all the security designed to stop threats coming from the outside.
So that one surgical success, it's stunning. But how does it fit into the broader pattern? This brings us to Operation Spiderweb.
Yes, exactly. Spiderweb, which was back in early June 2025, it just redefined what a deep strike could be. It was Ukraine's longest range operation to date, hitting bases thousands of kilometers inside Russia. Places like Belaya in the Irkutsk region. That's practically on the other side of the continent.
And the scale of this one, it's just staggering. 117 FPV drones, over 18 months of planning, reportedly with oversight right from the top of Ukrainian leadership.
And they weren't hitting random targets. They were going after Russia's strategic aviation fleet.
The bombers, the ones launching the cruise missiles at Ukrainian cities.
Those are the ones. And the confirmed damage, just from open source analysis, is severe. 8 Tu-95 strategic bombers, 4 Tu-22 M3 bombers, and an An-12 transport plane. That's 13 confirmed damaged aircraft across 5 different bases.
Assets worth billions. But wait, 117 drones? The logistics of that. I mean, how do you smuggle that many components thousands of kilometers without anyone noticing? It seems impossible.
And that's the genius of the Trojan horse tactic. The drones, or more likely their disassembled parts, were smuggled into Russia, hidden in plain sight, in commercial shipments, spare parts deliveries.
So they weren't launched from Ukraine.
Not at all. They were assembled covertly at local sites. There was that report about a warehouse they leased in Chelyabinsk for, 350,000 rubles a month?
Appetitzen?
A tiny sum. And from there, or places like it, they launched locally from concealed trailers or vehicles.
Yeah.
So they completely bypassed the perimeter defenses, which are all looking outwards.
Because the threat was already inside. That's the cost asymmetry there is just off the charts. And the tech side controlling them from so far away.
Pure ingenuity. The whole operation was controlled remotely from outside Russia, and they did it by piggybacking on Russian mobile networks, just regular 4G and LTE.
Just consumer cell service.
It gives you just enough bandwidth for a video feed and command inputs, and they used cheap, open-source autopilot systems like ArduPilot. So you're right, billions in strategic assets taken out by low-cost, commercial-grade parts and a cell phone network.
Okay, so zooming out. The Lipetsk strike, the massive spiderweb operation, it all leads to this one big question. Why? Why did Russia's huge, supposedly superior air force, the VKS, fail so badly to get air superiority in the first place?
It's the question everyone has been asking since the start. Before the invasion, every analyst expected a rapid collapse. The VKS's performance was called missing, perplexing.
And when you contrast it with, say, Israel's Operation Rising Lion against Iran, it's night and day. Israel got air superiority in less than 4 days.
And the analysis points to these deep, systemic flaws in Russian doctrine. It made them almost inherently unable to run a modern air campaign. At its core, it's about subordination.
Meaning the Air Force doesn't get to run its own show.
Precisely. Russia has no real history of independent, offensive air superiority campaigns. The VKS is subordinate to the ground forces. They think of air power as support for artillery, not as a strategic tool in its own right.
And that had immediate fatal consequences on the battlefield.
It did. Because instead of systematically taking out Ukraine's air defenses, the SEED mission that you have to do first, struggling Russian ground commanders, kept pulling VKS jets off that mission to do close air support for their troops.
So they sacrificed the long game for a short-term fix.
Exactly. They traded the critical goal of air superiority for immediate, but ultimately unsustainable relief on the ground. And on top of that, there's the chronic underinvestment in the tech you need for this kind of war. Things like modern targeting pods, precision munitions.
And pilot training, and I saw that figure. VKS pilots fly less than 100 hours a year.
It's shockingly low. The NATO minimum is 180, and most pilots push for 200 plus. That training gap, it translates directly into lost planes and missed targets.
And then there's the intelligence failure.
A huge one. They didn't have timely target lists. Targeting plans were created, every 24 hours? By the time a Russian pilot got the coordinates for a Ukrainian Buk battery, that battery had already moved days ago.
So they were hitting ghosts.
They were hitting empty fields, and because their battle damage assessment, their BDA, was so slow and inaccurate, they often thought their strikes were working. They'd assume a system was destroyed when it had just moved, allowing it to survive and pop up somewhere else.
And this is where Ukrainian adaptation just completely flipped the script. They didn't try to outfight Russia in the air. They changed the rules on the ground.
They did. Even before the invasion, they rapidly moved their mobile air defense systems, the Buks. They saved an estimated 90% of them from those initial missile salvos.
And then they dispersed them.
Exactly. They broke them down from these big, easy-to-target divisions into small, mobile, shoot-and-scoot teams. They became these unpredictable pop-up threats. They'd engage a jet and then just vanish before Russia could even confirm a target.
And they integrated man-pads operators into those teams, right? Creating that high-low threat.
Yes, that was critical. It forced Russian pilots into an impossible choice. Fly high, and you're a target for the long-range radar-guided missiles. Fly low, and you're a target for the short-range, heat-seeking man-pads. There was no safe altitude.
So bringing this all together, what are the lessons here for global defense? These attacks have some really uncomfortable implications.
They really do. Ukraine, just like Israel did in Operation Rising Lion, proved that you can effectively attack strategic assets from within an enemy's air defense bubble. It's a disruptive model.
And you said this model is repeatable.
It's highly repeatable.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't rely on some exquisite piece of military hardware. It relies on exploiting human error, logistic systems, commercial networks. things that exist in every country.
Which raises a very uncomfortable question for NATO and Europe. Our open economies, our interdependent supply chains,
Yeah.
they seem structurally vulnerable to this exact kind of Trojan horse attack.
They are. You can't check every single shipping container coming into Rotterdam or Hamburg for drone parts. It's just not practical. It means your fixed assets are fundamentally vulnerable if the attack originates from inside your borders.
So the focus has to shift away from just perimeter defense.
It has to shift dramatically. You need to develop local, dedicated counter-UAS bubbles to protect your most valuable assets, and especially your own air defense batteries, from these close-in threats.
And that gets back to the Lipetsk lesson. It's about intelligence. Air planners need to break down those old bureaucratic walls and coordinate seamlessly with their covert and clandestine organizations.
Absolutely. The security of an F-35 base might have less to do with its advanced radar, and more to do with whether someone is keeping an eye on the guard schedules.
So what's the big takeaway? The strategic impact of these low-cost attacks is just profound. It forces Russia to pull its best assets farther back, to reallocate its already stretched air defenses, to pour resources into counterintelligence deep in their own territory.
All of that operational burden is created for really a nominal cost to Ukraine. It's the future of combat innovation. It's about leverage, not mass. It means you can build a multi-billion-dollar protective hangar, but that protection is worthless if the human element fails.
The Lipetsk strike was made possible by studying guard change schedules. I can't get over that. What does it mean for the future of military security when the key to destroying $100 million in assets isn't cutting-edge stealth tech, but just meticulous surveillance of basic human patrol routines? It forces all of us to redefine what a secure perimeter truly is. You've been listening to Defense Report by Alex Sanaria, where we analyze the latest in military strategy, global defense, and advanced weaponry.
Subscribe to Defense Reports, your go-to source for timely, in-depth military and defense reports. We'll catch you next time.